on camera mounts, there are a couple of different things to talk about. The first thing is how to mount your camera onto your helmet, which has really been sort of the topic of most of the conversations we've had. And there, like we said before, there's not really one specific way to mount the cameras to the helmet. There are a variety of them, but some of them that seem to be most popular are quick release mounts, for instance. Okay, something where you have a half of the mount to the camera, and then the other half stays on the helmet, and then the two join together, and they actually mount, so they're more of a quick release. And this way what you're doing is you're actually making the two mate by using one part on the camera, the other part on the helmet, and then the two actually live together that way. And the advantage of those is that you have a very easy way to get your camera on and off the helmet. So that's one of the advantages of it. Now here's something to consider when you're talking about that. The quick release mounts give you the advantage of removing your camera quickly, which is why they're called that. But it also adds a space between your camera platform, let's say the top of the helmet, and the camera itself. And what that does is it also creates a possible gap, which is something that's very important to address. So let's say in the case of this kind of helmet that has a quick release mount here, and then this one, the other half would go on the camera itself, and when you put that there, you actually can create a gap between the two that's created by the mount, and that is something to be really careful with because those are the kind of things that we were talking about earlier on snag points. With that said, with all the different kind of mounts and quick releases and so on, there's all kinds of different designs. People make their own designs as far as sometimes attaching the cameras to a plate that then attaches to the helmet. Each helmet manufacturer has its own technique and its own things they recommend for their own specific helmet. So it's really important that you get into it and look at what works for you. A quick release mount is not always the solution. It's just a solution if you're constantly moving your camera on and off the helmet, because you may use it for the ground and then on the helmet and it's the same camera. Some other people have their helmets and cameras joined together and they rarely use them apart, which means that they don't really have to be relying on a quick mount. But generally speaking, people want to be able to take the camera off the helmet or off the mount quickly. Now, also, the different conversation as far as camera mounts is not how to mount the camera to the helmet, but which kind of places to mount a camera, which is a very different conversation. For instance, let's consider that the helmet is only a place to mount a camera on your head, but maybe you want to mount the camera in a different place. In some cases, somebody might want to mount a camera. There's people who want to experiment with toe cams, which are cameras that mount on your feet. Okay, perhaps for a look, you might have seen some pictures published in the magazines where you see an angle, the camera being on the foot, and you see the person and then the canopy and so on, or even in free fall. So that's one possible angle. Another possible angle is a chest mount. It's very popular, chest mount. Sometimes it's an angle to when we're making movies, you might have a different angle of the same jump, perhaps, and a chest mount would be it. Also, for if you're doing any kind of canopy work, if you're doing testing of canopies, there's a lot of reasons why you would want to play with a chest mount or any other angle. In some cases, you're even talking about cameras to be mounted on airplanes and things like that, and that just depends on how much you're going to be playing with. One of the popular ways to go in some cases is a wrist mount. It's been actually manufactured and marketed as a camera mount, and that is another option. So really, each one of these things is a variation. Now, my recommendation is that you don't start jumping into these things as lightly as can be. Each one of them, as anything else that we've said in this video, really, you're adding a whole new responsibility. Just because it's easy to mount someplace doesn't mean it doesn't create a problem on its own. So perhaps a camera that you mounted on your chest creates a different problem than a camera you mounted on your head. But it doesn't mean that just because it's on your chest, it's now safe and you're out of danger. You really have to consider that anywhere you mount the camera, especially in your body, you have the responsibility to keep in mind where it is, what it is that you need to do to be safe, and all you can do with that is be conscious about it. Be conscious about where you're mounting it and what you want to do and what your possible dangers are.